Imagine this. You're standing in front of a mirror, but the reflection staring back isn't you. At least, not the you that you show to the world. This reflection is darker, more primal, harboring desires and capabilities that make you uneasy. It's the part of yourself you've spent a lifetime burying, denying, locking away in the basement of your consciousness. And yet, here's the unsettling truth. This shadow self isn't just a part of you, it holds the very key to your wholeness. What if the parts of yourself that frighten you most are precisely the elements you need to integrate to become complete? This is the profound paradox at the heart of Carl Jung's psychology, that our greatest fear isn't inadequacy or failure, but the terrifying power of our own unexplored depths. We live in a culture obsessed with light, with positivity, with presenting only our best selves. We filter our photos, curate our social media, and carefully construct personas that reflect how we wish to be seen. But underneath this performance lies a shadow, growing denser and more powerful with each denied impulse, each suppressed emotion, each disowned aspect of ourselves. The shadow doesn't disappear when ignored. It festers, occasionally erupting in moments that leave us wondering, where did that come from? Jung recognized this universal human tendency towards psychological fragmentation. He observed that we create masks, what he called personas, to navigate social expectations while simultaneously pushing disowned aspects of ourselves into what he termed the shadow. This psychological splitting creates an invisible tension within us, like tectonic plates pressing against each other, creating fault lines in our psyche. Until you make the unconscious conscious, Jung warned, it will direct your life, and you will call it fate. Consider how often you've been blindsided by your own reactions. A surge of irrational jealousy, an unexpected rage, an inexplicable attraction, or a paralyzing fear that seems disproportionate to the situation. These moments aren't random. They're glimpses of your shadow breaking through, demanding recognition. The greatest deception we practice isn't on others but on ourselves. We believe we know who we are, yet how can this be true when we've systematically exiled crucial parts of our nature? The personas we construct become prisons, and what began as social adaptation calcifies into self-alienation. Here lies the core tension of human existence. The parts of ourselves we fear most often contain our greatest potential. The aggressive impulses we suppress might hold our capacity for healthy assertion. The vulnerability we hide might contain our power to connect deeply. The chaos we avoid might harbor our creativity. What if your salvation lies not in becoming better at being who you think you are, but in having the courage to become who you're afraid to be? This question isn't merely philosophical. It's existential. It strikes at the heart of our psychological fragmentation and points toward the possibility of wholeness. Jung called this journey toward integration individuation, the process of reconciling opposites within ourselves to become fully human. But to begin this journey, we must first understand what forces drive us to fragment ourselves in the first place. What powerful psychological and cultural currents have led us to this state of inner division, and what price do we pay for maintaining it? Why do we hide from ourselves? The answer lies in our earliest experiences of the world. As children, we quickly learn which parts of us earn love and which parts bring rejection. A boy told, "Big boys don't cry," learns to bury his tears. A girl praised only for being nice and pretty learns to suppress her anger and ambition. We split ourselves not by choice, but by necessity. This splitting happens long before we can understand it. Our parents, teachers, and friends, all with good intentions, shape us through a simple system of rewards and punishments. Smile and they smile back. Show rage and they pull away. Before long, we've created an inner map of which feelings are good and which are bad. Jung saw this process clearly. He knew that society needs rules to function. But he also saw how these same rules can tear us apart inside. The parts of ourselves that don't fit get pushed into shadow, not because they're evil, but because they're unwelcome. Think about it. When was the last time you were praised for showing jealousy? Or rewarded for expressing selfishness? Or celebrated for admitting dark thoughts? Our culture has no place for these natural human experiences, so we learn to hide them, even from ourselves. This hiding creates a gap between who we really are and who we think we are. Jung called this gap neurosis, a fancy word for the pain of being split from yourself. The bigger the gap, the greater the suffering. The trouble is, the shadow doesn't disappear when ignored. Like a beach ball held underwater, it takes energy to keep it down. And the more we push it away, the stronger it pushes back. This explains why the kindest person can suddenly explode in rage. Or why the most faithful partner might battle unexpected attraction. Or why the most confident leader sometimes feels like a fraud. These aren't signs of failure, they're signs of the shadow demanding attention. Modern life has only made this problem worse. We live in a world of highlight reels and filtered photos. Social media rewards our masks while punishing our humanity. We're surrounded by messages telling us to be positive and focus on the light. But as Jung warned, one does not become enlightened by imagining figures of light, but by making the darkness conscious. The cost of this inner war is enormous. When we reject parts of ourselves, we lose access to their power and gifts. The anger we suppress might contain our ability to set boundaries. The sadness we avoid might hold our capacity for empathy. The selfishness we condemn might protect us from being used by others. Even more costly is the energy we waste on this inner battle. Imagine how much creative power is locked up in maintaining our masks. How much life force is spent denying what we feel. How much joy is lost when we can only bring half of ourselves to our relationships. The shadow also has a way of leaking out despite our best efforts. We might judge harshly in others what we refuse to see in ourselves. The traits that irritate us most in other people often mirror our own disowned qualities. Jung put it simply, everything that irritates us about others can lead us to an understanding of ourselves. This psychological projection creates distance in our relationships. We build walls against others because we've built walls within ourselves. We reject in them what we cannot accept in us. And so our inner division becomes outer division. Separation from others, from nature, from life itself. The greatest irony? The parts of ourselves we run from often contain exactly what we need. The vulnerability we hide might be the doorway to genuine connection. The anger we suppress might fuel necessary change. The chaos we fear might spark our greatest creativity. So how do we heal this divide? How do we reclaim the exiled parts of ourselves? The answer requires a journey, not away from our shadow, but straight toward it. The way back to wholeness begins with a simple but uncomfortable step, turning to face what you've been running from. This doesn't mean acting on every dark impulse or indulging every forbidden desire. It means acknowledging these parts of yourself exist, and that they belong to you. Jung called this shadow work, the process of bringing the unconscious into consciousness. It starts with the brave admission, this too is me. The rage you feel in traffic. The jealousy that burns when others succeed. The selfish thoughts that cross your mind. These aren't alien invaders, they're exiled parts of yourself waiting to be reclaimed. This work isn't easy. Meeting your shadow often feels like facing an enemy. Your first instinct might be to fight or run. But Jung found that something remarkable happens when you stay present with these disowned parts. They begin to transform. Consider anger. When suppressed, it festers into bitterness or explodes in harmful outbursts. But when acknowledged and integrated, this same energy becomes healthy assertiveness, proper boundary setting, and the passion to fight for what matters. The problem was never the anger itself, it was the relationship to it. Or take the dark traits many try to eliminate: selfishness, pride, or vanity. When pushed into shadow, they become twisted and destructive. But brought into the light of awareness, selfishness becomes healthy self-care. Pride becomes genuine self-worth. Vanity softens into self-appreciation. The poison is in the denial, not in the trait itself. Jung found that our most feared qualities often contain our greatest gifts in disguised form. One man Jung worked with was terrified of his aggressive impulses and lived as a doormat to others. By carefully integrating his capacity for healthy aggression, he found his voice and power, transforming from victim to leader. A woman haunted by sexual thoughts she considered shameful discovered that when faced directly, this energy contained her creative life force and zest for living. Her art and relationships blossomed not from suppressing these feelings, but from understanding and transforming them. This is the paradox at the heart of Jung's teaching. What we run from most often contains what we need most. The path of integration isn't about eliminating parts of yourself. It's about creating space for all of who you are. It's about developing what Jung called the tension of opposites, the ability to hold contradictory aspects of yourself without splitting them apart. You can be both kind and fierce, vulnerable and strong, serious and playful. The mature personality isn't one-sided but multifaceted, a living embodiment of life's natural contradictions. How do you begin this journey? Start with curiosity rather than judgment. When uncomfortable feelings arise, instead of pushing them away, ask, what is this feeling trying to show me? What wisdom might it contain? Pay attention to your dreams, which Jung saw as messages from the unconscious. Notice which people trigger strong reactions in you, positive or negative, as they often mirror your own disowned qualities. Watch for overreactions, where your response seems bigger than the situation calls for, These are shadow gold mines. Journal about the parts of yourself you're ashamed of or afraid to admit. Speaking these truths, even just to the page, begins the process of integration. Find safe spaces, trusted friends, support groups, or therapy, where you can show more of your wholeness without fear. Remember that integration happens gradually. You don't have to face everything at once. Small steps of acknowledgement create space for profound transformation over time. What emerges from this work isn't perfect harmony but dynamic balance, a self that contains multitudes without being torn apart by them. Jung called this the self, the centered, whole person who has made room for both light and shadow. From this place of wholeness, you'll find a strange new freedom. No longer drained by inner conflict, your energy becomes available for genuine living. No longer terrified of your depths, you can dive into life with all of yourself. No longer projecting your shadow onto others, your relationships gain depth and authenticity. This is the ultimate paradox of human growth. We become most fully ourselves by embracing what we feared would destroy us. The call to wholeness isn't just personal, it's collective. A world of people at war with themselves creates a world at war. People who reject their own shadows cast longer shadows on others. Those who fear their own depths create shallow cultures. Jung believed that our individual journey toward wholeness contributes to the healing of our divided world. By making peace with the contradictions within ourselves, we become living bridges across the divides around us. So perhaps the most important question isn't who you think you should be, but who you're afraid to be. Because in that fear lies your path to becoming whole. Not perfect, not pure, but fully, courageously human. The parts of yourself you've been running from are waiting to be reclaimed. They hold gifts you can't imagine. And they've been part of you all along, patiently waiting for you to turn and face them, to say at last, you too belong. You too are welcome here. You too are me.